My name is Sarah Owens, and I'm a communications supervisor here at Seattle 911. I've been with the department since September of 2017. I nominated the team for the APCO Team Award this year for an event that they worked last summer. This award was for our Washington State Chapter, and there are several different categories that we nominate for. This team award was for this event specifically for the Capitol Hill takeover and shooting incident that we had on that evening. This is a situation that was especially taxing on everybody on this evening. We had several call takers who spoke directly with victim or with callers who were with victims of gunshot wounds. We had a call taker on the phone with the sister of a deceased victim and having to talk her through that situation until help could arrive. This pure span of it, it lasted hours. It was an incident that started off as one dynamic situation where it was a street racing situation that turned into gunfire and loss of life. Going through the call, looking at the call notes, speaking to the dispatchers, speaking to the call takers, and getting their perspectives of what they went through on that evening, it's very easy to move on to the next thing. These guys take these calls, this incident happens, they turn around and they take the next one. And I believe that there needs to be somebody to go back and do that little bit of a deep dive on what they went through for that night. It's when it's something that is that big of an incident, to really let them know that they were seen, to let them know that their professionalism and how they worked through the incident and how they worked together was nothing short of phenomenal.
My name is Tom Coonrod. I'm a Seattle 911 dispatch communications supervisor. So I used to be a police officer, sworn officer for University of Washington Police Department at Harborview Medical Center. APCO and NENA are both professional organizations nationwide and internationally. APCO is an international organization of public communications professionals. As part of their tasks, they provide a series of awards to different agencies and different employees in those agencies that have gone above and beyond or have done something spectacular. So what they did spectacular was our call takers were able to recognize that an incident was happening and then be able to not put in duplicate calls, so to overwhelm the dispatcher with the sheer number of calls coming in. The dispatcher then becomes a funnel for all that information to give it to the police officers in a coherent manner. And that that dispatcher was able to take 50 different points of information, distill it down into one call, and then get the salient points out to the officer so they would know where it was happening, what was happening, how many people were there any weapons, was there anybody injured, in that kind of order so that they can get an appropriate response. It's a pretty prestigious award, a statewide award that recognizes the hard work that these employees do on a daily basis. The nice thing about this award is it's specifically a teamwork award, and that's why this is such a perfect example of that type of teamwork. Without any one of these individuals, the call might have failed. If the original call taker had not called in the call right away and put in the appropriate details on the call, then other people might not have known that it was going on, and it wouldn't have gotten clearly out to the police officers. So what was great about this event is that these people all work together seamlessly as a team, as the various cogs making it work, where if a single one of them had been pulled out at any point, it could have caused a disastrous situation where officers weren't getting the information they need or weren't getting the support they need and ended up going in blind or not having enough officers go at all.
My name is Patrick Nguyen, and I'm a D1 call taker for Seattle 911. I've been working at Seattle 911 for a little over 2 years now. At the time, I was working nights. Typically, nights are really slow, nothing really happens until this popped up. And it came all at once, but everybody in the room got together, teamwork, and solved this problem. I took several calls that night, but I do remember one call in particular where a friend was calling for her friend that was shot in the head, and it stuck out to me because it gave me a chance to be there for somebody when nobody else was. And I knew immediately without thinking, I got the medics on the line to make sure that they were aware of what was going on. And then after the medics were done screening, I wanted to make sure that our caller was going to be okay, to see if they can get somewhere safer, where were they, and how can we get all of our resources over there. And you can hear all the call takers trying to quickly get all their information, moving on to the next person, and then moving on to the next person. It's almost like clockwork. I think that's the coolest thing. We can just go from 0 to 100 and then back to 0 again. And we're always prepared for that. It's definitely a team effort. I knew that once I got my updates in and documentation in, I knew that that information wasn't gonna get lost. I knew that Tyler, who was working dispatch at the time, was gonna get that information relayed immediately. Every day that somebody calls in this particular incident, this is likely this person's worst day of their life ever. And if I can spend the extra 20 seconds, 40 seconds to hang on, let them know that I'm there for them and that they can trust calling in to 911, then that's what I want to do. I think that's really important.
My name is Sadie Swanbeck, and I am a dispatcher 2 for Seattle 911. I've been at Seattle 911 for almost 3 years. So when the calls started pouring in, my immediate reaction was, oh, they're just cars backfiring, people are annoyed by the noise, stuff like that. But I think once we got the first person saying, I see someone shooting, and then we have 20 calls holding in the goner because everybody starts calling in, that's when it kind of, everything hits the fan and everybody's like, okay, this is actually a real call, and everybody starts focusing, it gets quiet except the call is coming in. So it kind of turned into something small and then escalated pretty quickly within the next couple minutes. Once we started getting calls about shots heard, then it started quieting down in here. Everybody was super focused on their screen, saying where can they assist. If they weren't on a call or they weren't on a zone, we were calling fire, we were picking up other commands, we were, reaching out to the other zones, reaching out to fire, seeing if state patrols needed, going out to other agencies, seeing where we can assist, kind of picking up where needed. So if calls need to be handled, we were picking up calls. If commands were needed from the radio zone, we were picking up those commands. Our biggest thing, obviously, as radio is officer safety. We want to make sure all of our officers are mapped at the correct location, because a call can come in at one specific intersection, but when we have officers on foot at different locations trying to find different victims, we want to make sure those officers are noted on the call specifically where they are, because if something goes wrong, our officers don't have mapping on their person, only on their vehicle, so we want to know exactly where they are. So there's multiple ways we communicate with each other. We want to make sure our officers are where they're saying they are, they have the correct amount of resources. We don't want to send one officer in when there's 100 people on the sidewalk, So kind of communicating back and forth with the officers over the radio and on MDT and with other zones and the other agencies, just to get everybody the assistance that they need, as well as the victims. We were all assisting each other, and my main priority was answering the phones, but as well as if Tyler needed assistance, he's one person with probably 30 officers, different agencies, fire department, it's a lot to handle. So I was trying to take whatever I could off his plate, as well as assisting the supervisor as well. We work very well together, we communicate well together, we look out for each other, we make sure not only we're safe, but our officers are safe, but our fire department is safe. And so I think just looking out for each other and communicating and, doing our job.
It's kind of funny when we got the award, because when, it was a little delayed from when the incident happened, and they were like, oh, we got this team award. And my first thought was, for which call? Because we do this stuff all the time. My name's Ann Lasswell, and I'm a communications analyst. At the time of this incident, I was a dispatcher 2, which meant that I could both take calls on the floor, 911 non-emergency, or work radio depending on the needs, so dispatching officers and other resources to calls. So when I got, my first call about it, I just had an open line. So I heard, lots of screaming in the background. I heard the words shot. I could hear a lot going on, but as soon as I heard the word shot or, shooting, or I think at one point I heard someone say, I think she's dead, those phrases and words just kind of really stand out from the background. I'm trained to listen for these specific things that I know are going to be important and that need to get updated onto the call. So having that open line, I'm actively listening, trying to pick out anything I can hear. If I can hear cars driving away, if I can hear other voices, if it sounds like they're maybe male or female, or if I hear any sort of descriptors given out, any and all of that I want to update to the call because it could be important. I used our mapping. When you call in on a cell phone, we can see where you're mapping to. We have different levels of that and different programs that kind of work together to give you the best idea of where that person is. Once I got that, I could map and I could see we already had a call in with reports of shots heard and potentially a victim. So I could immediately find the call it was related to, start adding updates of what I was hearing, how many people it sounded like were there, where specifically it was mapping to, maybe a business that was nearby. And then I could also get our fire department on the line to let them know, hey, I think I have a victim here. No one's answering me, but here's where it's mapping to. Here's what I heard. And then they can, respond appropriately as well. So I'm doing one part of it, and I know that our dispatcher is seeing my updates and he's relaying them in real time to the officers. Having different levels of that, our call takers, our dispatchers, our supervisor, everyone does their own part. And we all trust each other. We know that, whatever we get on the phone, I'm only hearing that, but they're going to trust what I'm typing is accurate. I trust what they're going to do with that information is accurate, and that all of that's going to come together to get people out there on the street the help they need. All of that just kind of adds up with, especially in these instances of life or death situations, that's when we all really buckle down and we know, we got to zero in on what's happening, and we rely on each other for support, and we trust each other to know that whatever I get and put in, you're going to take it and go on with it from there or up the chain to the supervisor. Everybody's just kind of working together seamlessly, no matter what the call is, to get the best outcome. And I saw that it was Tyler that was working East Dispatch that night. So I'm like, okay, he's got it under control. He has a lot of experience here, but also worked at a different agency before. So he, has that reservoir of knowledge that we know whatever happens, he's going to get it out there.
So our role as 911 dispatchers and call takers, we're the first point of contact. There's first responders, and then we're the first people of the first responders, the first responders. My name is Tyler Warren. I've been working at Seattle 911 for going on a little over 4 years. My role is being a dispatcher for the police department, primarily working the radio to send them calls for service and coordinating with the fire department and other medical services to get the appropriate assistance to the community members. I failed at keeping track of the exact time that I've been dispatching police and other first responders to events, but it's 10 years at least. I think it's upwards of 10 now. So one of these days I'll look at the calendar. It's one of those nights that it's kind of branded on, on my memory, not because it was so horrific or anything, but because it was just so much chaos that was going on in such a short period of time. And as just being the radio operator, it was kind of like being in the eye of the storm almost. I wasn't a patrol officer out on the street seeing these things, or the call takers talking to these citizens and trying to help them through that one moment. I had a deluge of information coming at me. The moment this starts happening, I can't even put a number on it of how many people that called in. And every single one of these people has their own story, their own version of events, details that are happening. And I'm looking at one page of information and it's just flowing, scrolling, updating faster than I can really read. But luckily, our people were well trained, and everything they put in there was concise. Everything that they were updating was pertinent, and they were able to convey the information they were receiving over to me, down the funnel, so that I could parse through it as quickly as possible and get everything that was needed out to officers. I remember it started off with the street racers, and it quickly escalated because these individuals had kind of cordoned off the area, and they started performing these maneuvers like donuts and other things that were fairly dangerous and going to be putting other people in danger, especially we're hearing that there's a crowd of, say, 50 out there. And when you get 50 people surrounding a car that's spinning uncontrollably, we all start to get worried. And so we made it a higher priority call very, very fast. I sent as many officers as I could at the time because I wanted everyone to be as safe as possible. And with a report of, say 20 cars and 50 people, I was hoping that I had sent enough, but they got there, and as soon as the officers arrived, they quickly let me know that no, that number is not correct. It was something, I think they reported like 500 people were out there, which immediately I remember my adrenaline spiked, because when you're talking about crowds that size, it becomes a lot more unpredictable. And nearby we had the Capitol Hill block party going on. There's a lot of tinder ready for a fire, and it was frightening. at the end of the day, all we want is for every community member to go home safe. We want our police officers to go home safe. We don't want anybody injured. Property damage, if we can minimize that, that's ideal. But at the end of the day, we're there for everybody's life and safety. The queue for 911 calls of how many are coming in, how many calls are holding, that started going off. And that's never a good sign when it happens all at once. The call started getting updated with, there were shots that were heard in this area, more calls of people screaming, and somebody was shooting, etc. And that was, basically worst case scenario. The officers that I had quickly responded. They found one gunshot victim, but they got out there with the one gunshot wound victim. And while they were trying to secure the scene and get this person stabilized and make it a safe environment for the medical professionals to come in and, get this person to the hospital as fast as possible, there was other victims being reported, another one, 3. And then while they're the officers and everyone else are trying to basically cordon off this area as best they can, and amidst a crowd of hundreds, they start telling me that they hear gunshots going on in an alley nearby. Bad things are already happening, but the worst thing is that they keep happening. And I had to put out a citywide call for help. I need everybody possible just to try and save these people that had already been shot. These people had already been shot, and now I need everybody just to try to get them some medical help. In total, I believe it was like five people had been shot that night, and it was spread out and hundreds of people. It was just the most chaotic thing in the world. In this moment where all these things are, being said, that I'm listening to all these different officers, all these callers are giving information, we're also making phone calls on our own end. I need to call the fire department. I need to make sure a sergeant's aware. I need to make sure that every piece of personnel that is needed or might be needed is aware of what's happening. And on Malcolm's end, he's doing the same thing. We might need a SWAT team. Who knows? He's ready to make notifications. This is an incident that wouldn't have gone smoothly with just one person. It took a concerted effort from all of us to be able to get all of this information boiled down so that we could quickly get the appropriate resources exactly where they're needed and save these people from any potential harm greater than what they had already suffered. Being a dispatcher, it's funny because sometimes I think of it as like the quarterback on a team. The quarterback's always the one that throwing the ball, handing the ball off. But at the end of the day, you can't win a game or accomplish something as critical as this without everybody around you. I had Ann, Patrick, Sadie, Ashley. They were all call takers that at the end of the day, I almost consider them having done more. They gave me information that enabled me to make sure that everybody got assistance. Nobody got lost in the chaos. I've worked as a dispatcher for 10 years, part of that at another agency in Oklahoma, and there we dealt with a lot of tornadoes. I've experienced dealing with the aftermath of a tornado and a citywide response there as well. And I can tell you that the teamwork that I was a part of here had no match. I've never experienced something working so smoothly as the team that came together on that night. When we were nominated for this award, I was happy to see that, the effort put on that night by the entire team was going to be recognized in some fashion. And when we won, I was very happy. I haven't seen that level of teamwork at such a widespread response with so many moving parts ever come together that flawlessly. It was something that really deserved to be recognized, and I'm just happy that these individuals that are behind a headset, behind a computer screen, even my supervisor up behind their desk, are going to get the recognition that I really think they deserve. There's a saying that I always use for myself and for when I'm training people, and it's talk to that person on the 911 call like they're a member of your family, whether it's a grandparent, a parent, a kid, somebody that you like. Because there's nothing that makes me happier than serving those individuals in their time of need. Nobody likes calling 911. Nobody's going to call it on a good day. Very rarely do I get a call that says, "Hey, hope you have a good day." It's just the nature of the business, but that's why I do it, and it's still a good feeling. knowing that I can help out whoever it is that needs help.